Hi guys, it's me. I'm back with another video, and this week, those of you who've been following me on Blue Sky or on X or both will know I've been taking part in the Alphabet Book Challenge this month, where every day you post a book that you've enjoyed reading, starting with a letter of the alphabet, working your way through the alphabet A to Z. So, for those of you who don't follow me on Blue Sky and X, I thought, why should you miss out on all the fun learning some of my favourite books? So I'm going to go through them now. Or at least the first half of them. I'll do the second half in a separate video, so this video doesn't go on for like forever. But first, A. Attack of the Flickering Skeletons by Stuart Ashen. It's a good book. It's about 8-bit and 16-bit video games that you've probably not very heard of and are terrible. So let's go through some of the worst 8-bit and 16-bit games that are out there. Like Cisco Heat for the Commodore 64. Or... yes. Hair Razor, Prelude and Finale, which Stuart Ashens has done an entire lecture on, available on YouTube if you want to go and watch that. So yeah, it's a good book. I've read through it like several times, and it's always good to go back and looking at, 'cause it's like so many terrible games in history. That's A. For B is Blood of Balshandor by Richard Lee Byers. This is part of the Arkham Horror sort of novellas. This one follows the story of Dexter Drake, stage magician who accidentally comes across eldritch powers and starts being able to manipulate magic in reality rather than just stage conjuring. And then he ends up, fighting eldritch abominations as you usually do in Arkham Horror. It's quite a short novella. This series of novellas quite are. This one's only about 80 pages. I think this one is probably the better one out of the series novellas. There's about 6 or 7 of them, and most of them have pacing issues. Like the Cowling Fern one, it starts off really well, and then it gets like the fast final 5 pages, and they realise they haven't introduced the main villain, and so it's all a bit of a rush. So some of them have quite bad pacing issues, but I think this one is probably one of the best ones in the series. For C is Child of the Hive by Jessica Meets. This is more of a sci-fi sort of dystopia where most people are connected up to some sort of hive mind, and those that are not are hunted down by sort of secret agency who tries to get people to join the hive mind. And is one sort of young-ish guy, I think he's a teenager or like young adult, ends up having to infiltrate where the hive mind was initially set up and break the computer down that's controlling everybody. It's quite good. I actually got this on release day and got my copy signed by the author, so I'm quite pleased with that one. But it's definitely worth a read, especially if you like sort of sci-fi dystopian stuff. D, this one's quite a big book, it's actually 3 books in one. The Dragon King Saga by Stephen Lawhead. I do have one slight criticism of this, and that's it's very obvious in the writing that Stephen Lawhead has a quite strong pro-Christianity stance. It's like if you go to the second book, the Warlords of Nin, when the invading warlords come in, it's quite obvious that they're meant to represent the like Muslim and the Turkish hordes and Asian cultures. And as it gets further and further, it becomes quite obviously a parable for how Christianity is going to crusade against them and ultimately destroy these false religions. But taking that aside, it's very well written. It's quite a good set of stories. And again, this is actually my signed copy by Stephen Lawhead when I had dinner with him. Many years ago, actually. It's quite nice and quite worth reading. It's your sort of very standard high fantasy stuff. For E, bit different. Eastern Fought for the Western Mind by Anthony Strano on behalf of Brahma Kumaris Centre, who are a group who advocate sort of Indian philosophy, spirituality within Western culture. So this book particularly is on sort of yoga meditation, how it can benefit Western culture by incorporating a little bit of yogic meditation into daily life. It's a very short book. It's only about 100 or so pages, but it's quite a handy little book to get you an insight into some Eastern spirituality. So that's E. For F, Foundation, Isaac Asimov. The entire Foundation series is just amazing. But before you read the Foundation series, I would recommend reading his Earth and Empire series, because this is a Foundation series is a direct sequel to that, which I found out when reading Prelude to Foundation. I don't want to spoil too much, but one of the characters I loved from Earth and Empire comes back in Prelude to Foundation and plays a vital part in that, and then Prelude to Foundation sets up Foundation in the rest of the series. And it's your standard ISM off sci-fi, but it's just an amazing series, and I would highly recommend that anybody read the Foundation series and the Earth and Empire series. I'm actually missing one book from the series, and I can't remember the name of it now, but I've got 6 of them. There's apparently 7 in the series, so I need to hunt down the 7th one that I'm missing and have that read of that one. Moving on to G is The Greatest Story Ever Told by Bear Grylls. I did a review of this a few weeks ago, so I won't say too much about this one. You can just go watch my review of that separately if you're interested. But it's a retelling of the New Testament and story of Jesus through the eyes of the people who were with him growing up from childhood to his death and resurrection. So it's a unique sort of retelling of the New Testament. So moving on from G to H, we have The Hunger Games. This was given to me by a friend for Christmas some years ago, and I found the first 2 books intriguing enough. They were quite well put together, I thought. I preferred the second one to the first one, but the second one was quite interesting. Third one I did not like. I can't put my finger on what it was, but it's just something about the third book which seems to ruin what was going on in the way. Yeah. I've not actually seen the movie versions of them, and I know there's another one now which explores President Snow's background. I've not read that or seen that movie either. Maybe I should go watch the movies, but they're decent enough books. I think they've got some criticism for being a copy of Battle Royale, but they're fine for what they are, except for the third book, and I think really because the third book ruins it. It taints my view of the first 2, unfortunately. But that's H, Hunger Games. Moving on to I, we have An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley. This is not really a novel, but this is a sort of stage performance, and quite a short stage performance. I mean, the entire thing here is only 80 pages. But it's one I studied in high school for English Lit, and I've quite enjoyed it ever since, actually. It's a very sort of typical 1920s Agatha Christie sort of household affair, and then somebody dies, and so the inspector comes in to investigate, and it starts unravelling that the house has more secrets than it's letting on, and yeah, it gets all a bit sort of spooky and supernatural from then, but in a very good way. It's not just like shoehorned in, it's done very, very well. So Inspector Calls is my entry for I, and I'll recommend that one. J is Jennifer Government by Max Barry. This has been hugely influential, actually, in my approach to writing some of my sort of dystopian stuff. So the basic premise of this is set in the not too distant future. Capitalism has just completely taken over to the point where people's surnames now are the company they work for. So Jennifer Government, one of the main characters, is Jennifer, and she works for the government, particularly the US government. But then you also meet people like people who work for Nike, and their surname was Nike, and people who work for I need to remember this right now, National Rifle Association, is that what you call it in America? Sort of the gun people. That's a surname, like the acronym they use. There's McDonald's, because McDonald's being a huge company, ends up funding a load of private schools for people who can't afford normal school. And so their names become McDonald's. It's a very interestingly put together world, and then it just goes into this sort of corporate espionage where Jennifer Government tries to bring down the whole system from within. That's quite an interesting novel. That was J. So K is Keys to the Kingdom by Garth Nix. This is Mr. Monday, the first in the series. I couldn't pick just one, so I'm just doing the whole series of Keys to the Kingdom. Each day of the week, different problem, different villain, which is one of the embodiments of the 7 deadly sins. Mr. Monday is sloth. So on Monday, everybody just starts falling into comas and not doing anything and sleeping. And this one young boy has to go into the world of the architect and try and fix everything and take out Mr. Monday. But then as you get through the series, you start realising that the architect is who put everything together and isn't actually who they say they are, because they start to present themselves as a good person, so a good guy who's trying to stop these 7 deadly sins from taking over the world. But it turns out the architect set it all into place as an excuse to destroy reality. So you end up with the young boy having to fight against the architect to save reality after destroying the 7 deadly sins. Very interesting sort of young adult fiction. And then coming on to L, the last one I'm going to do for now, we have Lords and Ladies by Terry Pratchett. It's hard to pick just one of the Discworld series for me for this challenge, because I'm trying to do a different author for every day, so I'm not repeating the same series over and over. So it's very hard. In the end, I went with Lords and Ladies because it has the witches, who are some of my favourite characters from the Discworld series. Granny Weatherax, Nanny Og, and Magrat. Lords and Ladies has Discworld being invaded by elves, and it's up to the witches to save the day, using their not magic to defeat the elves. Or no, in this one, Granny Weatherax does actually do some magic, which is a rarity for Granny Weatherax. She usually uses psychology to solve her problems. But if you haven't read any of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, then what are you doing with your life? They are some of the best books you can ever read, and Lords and Ladies is one of the best ones in my opinion. So that is L. So that is the first half of my alphabet book challenge. And some of the eagle-eyed youngs, you may have realised that L is not in the middle of the alphabet, and there is a reason for that. I do not have entries for V or X. So 26 minus 2 is 24, so half of 24 puts you up to L. So that is why I'm ending there rather than doing M in this video. But next week I will do M through Z minus V and X. But thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.